It's my pleasure to introduce Jon Vandagriff to you. He is a Weatherford native. He is a graduate of the class of 1955, Weatherford College. He is a distinguished alumnus of Weatherford College. He holds a bachelor's degree from Howard Payne University and a master's degree from the University of North Texas. He spent multiple years in the journalism field at newspapers in both Brownwood and Weatherford, Texas. He wrote a book on the history of the Weatherford Democrat newspaper. He was a middle school teacher for a time. Most of his career, though, was spent in higher education at Tarrant County College in multiple facets there, ending up as a professor there. 31 years of teaching. He retired in, 2000-ish? Yeah. He was the past president of our Alumni Association. As you know, he has spent about 2 years researching and writing a book on our history here at Weatherford College. He teaches a course on Parker County and local history at the Dawes Heritage Culture Center. When you think of local history in this town, you think of Jon Vandagriff. And it is our pleasure to have him here. Please welcome Mr. Jon Vandagriff.
This reminds me of my days at Northeast Campus at Tarrant County College. I taught in a classroom similar to this, except we had a partition that could come down where you could divide it into 2 rooms. But I always liked it because, for the most part, you can see everybody. And if you have some students who are interested in snoozing a little bit, or if when you're taking a test they might want to look around, it makes it very difficult because when you're sitting here you can see everybody. Well, Scott asked me if I would talk about the history of Weatherford College. Yes, we have been working on it for a while. I kind of laughed when Brent asked me because I said, well, that's really part of my life. I was born in the first half of the last century. So you can see how old I am. Just had a birthday a couple of weeks ago, and I have been connected with Weatherford College pretty much that whole period of time. I had an aunt, an uncle who played football here, and an aunt who took classes. My 2 sisters and my brother also attended classes here. My son and my daughter attended classes here. And so I go back a long way with Weatherford College. Somebody was asking me when they saw my book, Weatherford College, the first 150 years. And they said, are you going to write the next book? And I told Brent, no, I am not going to write the next 150 years. Weatherford College has had a unique history, and I think it is very fascinating to be able to go through it. I'm going to kind of hit the highlights today. I was telling a while ago that I'll probably get up through the move to the campus, the century, and so forth for the most part, because the background of Weatherford College will give you an idea as to the difficulties that they've had to overcome. I started out my book by saying, taking a cue from its sponsoring Phoenix Masonic Lodge, Weatherford College, much like the fabled Phoenix bird, has risen from the ashes of wars, financial instability, and other challenges to spread education, not only in this area, but around the world. If you go through Brent's Hilltop magazine, you'll find that he frequently has articles of former students who have gone on to greater things. Weatherford College is a survivor, and I think that is very significant because you don't go through 150 years without having to have some kind of problem and being able to put them in your background. Texas legislature created Parker County in 1856. They named the county after Isaac Parker, who was a state representative from the Birdville area, Fort Worth was still a military small outpost then, it wasn't the city. But they created the county, and they named this county seat after Jefferson Weatherford, the state senator from Dallas County. And so this is where the Weatherford comes from. I thought it was interesting because I did a column not too long ago in the Democrat about Weatherford College connections and the name. Trying to find about Weatherford, and it was not very easy. All of the local histories that we had up to this time said he never came to Weatherford, we don't know much about him, and that was it. And so when I wrote my book on the history of the county, I had to do a lot of digging in it. And I found out that he was buried in Wilmer, just south of Dallas, in Stanton Cemetery, which is on private property and it is not maintained. And so it was very difficult to find it. But the reason I was trying to get into some of it was because of a hotel in Flagstaff, Arizona. It's called the Weatherford Hotel. And on the menu, it said that the owner of the hotel, the man who built it in 1895, was the son of the man for whom Weatherford was named. His father also was given the name for Weatherford College that he attended. Well, I came home and started looking at Jefferson Weatherford. Jefferson Weatherford did not have a John Wesley in his family. So that made me start digging, and I found out that there was a Samuel Weatherford who lived out in Annetta. He had a son named John Wesley. They were very devout Methodists. And he went to Arizona as a young man. Yes, he was not born in Weatherford, but he was born in Annetta, but he grew up in Weatherford, and he attended Weatherford College. Well, in writing the book, I ran across the name Weatherford again, and this was Dr. Willis Weatherford. He was one of the early leaders of the YMCA program, and he was very prominent in the Appalachian affairs and also in interracial affairs. He wrote something like 20 books on that. So you can see Weatherford College has had a strong background. You can see the connection with the church in that Pleasant Tackett, who was one of the first people to come into Parker County, was a Methodist minister. And he had a group of people coming in from the east. They got out to the Clear Fork to the Trinity River, and it was flooded. So they had to stop and wait for a while before they came in. Tackett took his group and went into the northern part of the county, into the Walnut Creek area, and he established the Methodist church there, the Methodist cemetery. This is where we got our beginnings as far as the Methodists were concerned. Well, I had to throw in a distant relative of ours. Noah T. Byers was Baptist, and it was in his building at Washington on the Brazos that they signed the Texas Declaration of Independence. And he came into this area, started the Clear Fork Baptist Church, started the First Baptist Church, started the Baker Baptist Church, and he was the first Baptist missionary in Texas. Well, you can see that the church is one of the early founders of the county area. But they supplied the interest, they supplied the help in getting it started. Public education in this area was very low at first. Because we didn't have any schools, people were scattered. They had classes being taught in homes or in the churches for a number of years until they were able to get something going. Weatherford has been noted as being one of the strongest education areas in the state of Texas. You may not realize it, but we had 2 seminaries and an institute in Weatherford. Fairmount Seminary was busy from 1890 to 1920, and it was located at the end of South Main Street where Aldi grocery store is today. The seminary is important because Weatherford College used it as a boys' dormitory for several years. And so you can see the connection with that one. There was the Sims Female Seminary and the Weatherford Academy also. Springtown had two colleges, College Hill Institute and Springtown Male and Female Institute. And there are also small colleges in Millsap, Field Station, and Webb. And so you can see that people in Parker County were very interested in education. I tell my classes when I'm teaching my history classes that you need to be aware of the P word. You have to realize to put everything into perspective, because when 1856 there was nothing in this area west with the exception of the Comanche and Kiowa Indians. And so we were on the very edge of the frontier. People who began to settle west of this area as far out as Albany used to come into Weatherford every month to get their supplies. So you can see that early Weatherford was a strong educational area. It was a strong center for the people. Well, very shortly after the county was created, what happened? The Civil War came along. And that was going to be devastating for a lot of places. Less than 5 years after the county was created, the Civil War began. And so you can see it's going to be a very difficult situation for the people. Many of the young men left. The financial condition being on the frontier made it very difficult. The frontier forts that had been established by the federal government to protect the people on the frontier from the Indians disappeared because the soldiers were taken to fight in the war. With that said, the Indians began to move in from the west again because we had taken over land that they had hunted in, and this was the area they considered their land. And so you can see the problem is going to happen there. Well, in 1869, during Reconstruction, just shortly after the war was over, the Phoenix Lodge in Weatherford applied for and received a charter to establish a Masonic Institute. And you can see these terms, institute, academies, seminaries, and all these sort of things going on. Instead of using just a plain old college name like we do today. The lodge had just been established 3 years earlier. So can you imagine a new organization taking on the building of a college or a institute to educate the people? They had a building that they were using. They met on the lodge met on the second floor, and the International Order of Odd Fellows, another organization, was on the first floor. The committee of Masons was organized, and they were going to form a company and sell stock in this institute, $25 a piece. Well, $25 is not much today. You can spend that going down to McDonald's or some of these places pretty quick. But $25 in the Civil War post area, the Reconstruction period, that was a lot of money. So you can see that it's going to be very difficult. Well, the school that they were going to establish was called the Weatherford Masonic Institute. And it would be on the east side of Houston Street. And you said, well, Houston Street doesn't have an east side on it. If you look at it today, well, that was one of the early streets that they established in the 1850s. And the street names changed very quickly. And they changed the name of Houston to College Avenue. And so you know where College Avenue is. Today runs across the east side of the square down to Gibson's and CVS Pharmacy. Well, that was not the way it looked when they built the institute, or when they were really ready for it, because the street went all the way through. And when you get down on the south side today of where Gibson's is, that was the edge of town. Everything south of there was oak trees. And so you can see Weatherford was not a very big town. And to have started Masonic Institute was a pretty good chunk to bite off at that particular time. Well, the street is going to be later renamed College Avenue in recognition of the school. Houston Street had run south from the square, dense woods from there southward. They were going to build a brick building, 50 feet by 75 feet, 2 stories high, and it would be used for the school and for the Masonic Lodge. If you go back and look at the early pictures, Katie got some over there, the early pictures of the building, it doesn't look quite like it did later, or when I was going to school, because it was brick. Later, they are going to cover it with brown stone when they close the street and begin to operate as a college there. Well, in 1869, they had a little problem. The Masonic Lodge members didn't come up with their money that they were going to have, and so they had difficulty. Despite the optimistic beginnings, they found out that they didn't estimate the cost of the building correctly. The cost had been grown from $15,000, some $3,000 more than what the original estimate was. So if you're building a building and it's got that much of an overrun on it, you can see you're going to have some real problems. Well, that wasn't the only difficulties that the people in Weatherford were having then. 1873, you go back to your U.S. history and you'll find that that was the panic in the United States. Financial difficulties were bad all over everywhere. So you can imagine what it was like here in Parker County. Well, a fellow by the name of E.D. Sykes loaned the college $400, and the college was not able to pay him back. So he sued and obtained a judgment against the school. When the sheriff's sale was held, Judge F.A. Leach, an active member of the lodge, consolidated the debt, and when they submitted the highest bidder, he bought it. And so he then turned around and said, okay, we're going to give it back, and each member of the lodge is going to be assessed $5 so that they'll have enough money to pay off the debt they had. Now, Dr. Leach is an interesting character. He pops up here and there throughout the early history of the college. He owned the sanitarium that had been the Female Institute out south of town. Well, in 1875, the city of Weatherford decided to create the Weatherford High School Association. They had 2 goals, which I think was really smart, because they didn't try to have a whole lot of things. The first thing was they would pay off the debt and they would maintain a first-class high school. The debt was paid off in October of 1875, and the dedication for the building was held. So finally, we've got a building. Now we can have some students coming in. Professor T.C. Hart of Kentucky was elected as the principal for the first term. Well, the state of Texas was also involved in quite a bit of activity during that time. In 1876, the Constitution rose up, said that there would be public schools in Texas. So this idea of the institute charging students to come in went down the drain. What are we going to do now? because we can't charge the students for it. Weatherford was the 7th free high school in Texas. And they built a 2-story building on Calpeza Street. And it would be very important as far as a landmark. It's up there where the current city hall is today. Well, the Masonic Institute was going to have to come up with something else. So they sold their property to a fellow by the name of Brown in 1885. He leased it to the Methodist Church. Now we're beginning to see the Methodists becoming involved in it again. The church was located on East Church Street and South Walnut at that time. The college began teaching, or the school began to teach college level courses. The courses that they were offering up until this time were academy type courses and things like that. But for the first time, they're going to offer college courses. Again, we're going to have a little problem. The weather doesn't cooperate. A tornado strikes Weatherford, and the First Methodist Church building is blown away in the spring of 1886. Well, the church told Mr. Brown, we can't pay, so you're going to have to take it. Well, the church asked to be released, and in 1889, the Masonic Lodge took the original unfinished building, and the property went to the Weatherford district of the Methodist Episcopal Church South. It's quite interesting because they've been having some information on a meeting that the Methodists have been having, and they were talking about division possibly of the church again. Well, at this time, this was the Methodist District South as opposed to the Methodist District North, because this was just after the Civil War period. And a lot of it had to do with the question of slavery. And so the Methodist Church took over. They got a group of local trustees, Judge I.W. Stevens, whose name is going to be very prominent all the way through the history, W.L. Davis, H.R. Andrews, R.H. Fote, and R.W. Kendall. And the college had its name changed. For the first time in a number of years, the Democrats had selected a president. After the Civil War, for a long period of time, they were all Republicans. And the Democrats selected Grover Cleveland. And Grover Cleveland came in as president, and the people of Weatherford said, hey, great, we're all Democrats down here. Let's change the name of the college to Cleveland College. And they sent word to the president with hopes that he might send a little money or something along with it. Well, he did. He didn't send any money, he sent 1,000 copies of the Congressional Record. Brent, I don't know if they're still in the library or not, but they very quickly, because he was not reelected for a second term immediately, and the people of Weatherford said, didn't last very long, so we're going to change the name again, and they changed it back to Weatherford College. In Granbury, the Methodist Church had started a college, and they had selected a fellow by the name of Dr. David Seville Switzer. He came to South Carolina. He had been a veteran of the Civil War, had been injured very severely, had to walk with crutches the rest of his life, but he started college there in Granbury. The college progressed very well, and they were very excited about it after the first full term there in that they had in Granbury. Well, conditions weren't the best. They had fire in Granbury. The building burned down. And so Switzer did not have a place for his students to meet. Some friends in Weatherford sent word down there, and they said, hey, we've got a building up here, 2-story building that is empty. We need a school to come in there. So Switzer, he was referred to as Dr. David Switzer, and all of the early writings and research that Brent and I did on this, we finally found out that that was an honorary title. He did not have a earned doctor's degree. I had a college professor, Dr. Lauderdale from Lauderdale, Mississippi. And the first day of class, he said, I have an earned doctor's degree. Do not call me Dr. Lauderdale, call me Mr. Lauderdale. I have too many friends who have honorary doctor's degrees, and they insist on being called doctor. So don't call me doctor. Well, Switzer didn't have a doctor's degree, but everybody referred to him, and nearly all the history books listed him as being a doctor. Well, he met with the people in Weatherford Methodist Church, and they decided, okay, we'll move up here. He came up, brought his entire faculty, which was mostly his family, children, his wife, and they came in and they started the program here. The first session, they had 227 students, with 97 being boarding students. Now, they did not have any boarding facilities, no cow village like we have today. So these kids were coming in and they were having to find places in town to live so that they could go. Well, Switzer is going to present a proposal to the board 3 different occasions saying, we need dormitories. And they said, yep, we really do. And that's as far as it went for a long time. In June of 1891, they reported 295 students enrolled, with prospects for more coming in the next semester. So the college had gotten off to a pretty good start. The idea of an addition to the college was one of the first things that Switzer wanted to do. And he asked the city to close off College Avenue so that they could put an addition on the front. And that's the one that you see in the pictures of Old Main, where they have the bell tower and everything in front, which made it very nice because it gave the college a lot more property. If you drive there today down South Main, you'll find that there's a little bit of a problem that they did not think about at the time. When I was going to school back in the last century, back in 1955, they were getting ready to build a new campus. And they finally moved, and the people were very upset. And they said, we need to save Old Main. And that was the big war cry in town. Well, having been there, my father was a builder, I paid a little more attention than what I would have ordinarily. South Main Street sits up here, college sits down here. So you can see the rain's coming down. The little bell tower area, if you had a pretty good sized rain, it filled with water. The building, because it was 100 years old, settled. And it was much lower than it was when they originally started out. So it's not going to be the ideal situation for growing. Also, the college did not have any parking area. Granted, not all of us had cars to drive back then, but the only parking space they had was at the north side of the building where the president and some of the faculty members, deans, could park there. Students had to park on the street. So you can see the problem that's going to occur there. Well, the college went ahead and built the section there in the front, and things began to look very good. The faculty for the fall term of 1894 had some very prominent people. One fellow who's going to honor him later when after his death, a fellow named Jon R. He became a teacher at the University of Texas and became an authority on musicology and archives of American folk songs. Financial difficulties came up again. They got the front of it added. They built a stage. They even added an observatory on the roof of the back half of the building, and they began to have difficulties again. V.R. Weatherford, who lives right across the street there on Elm Street, South Elm, his daughter, incidentally, was a music teacher here for quite a few years. He came along and gave the school a loan so that they would be able to continue to operate. Well, in this 1894 term, Old Main was finished, and the catalog reported it as having a physical laboratory, an observatory with a telescope, a library, and an auditorium seating 600 to 700 people, which was very large considering that particular time period. Well, Switzer's tenure at Weatherford College ended with his resignation in 1901. It was not very long that, thank you. It was not very long that he was here. He had difficulties with the board, as probably we do. No, we don't have any difficulties. But they had a little problem. They didn't want to build dormitories and so forth. And Switzer added onto his house, which is block off of a couple of blocks off of South Main Street. Still there today. Needs a paint job really bad though. He added some rooms on there, and he allowed some of the female students to live in these rooms that he added. Well, something happened. Nothing is ever written down about it, but 1901, he expelled a couple of girls. The board asked him, well, why did you expel them? He wouldn't say. They said, you don't have the authority to do that. And he said, I can, and I did. And so it wound up that Switzer says, I believe it. His wife had been head of the music program, and this was the beginning of the fine music program that we have at Weatherford College today. That is going to be one of the strongest points that the college will have over the years. Well, in 1902, Dr. S.W. Stanfield is going to be president, and they're going to change the name of the school again. It's going to be the Weatherford College Training School for Boys, no females, so you don't have any problem with having to expel them. Well, the curriculum is going to be changed, but Dr. Stanfield says, well, we'll let the girls come in anyhow, and they're going to have what they call a mistress of English degree that they will offer for the females. No BAs, no MAs, no courses like that, but I expect that they would probably home education, home ec courses that they were having. Dr. Stanfield's tenure was short. He left. Then they came in with with Huey and Turner, and they operated until 1907. And the Weatherford district of the Methodist Church was still maintaining control at this time. There was no athletic program listed as far as the material they had, but there is a picture in the archives of the football team in 1903. And it listed Walter Richards, who was a local sporting goods store owner, on the west side of the square. Let's see, where they added the new building. There was the Eggleston building, and the one just next to it, south, was where they had this building called Eversport, and Mr. Ed Richards was the proprietor of it. You could go there and buy anything you wanted, tennis rackets, footballs, baseballs, all sorts of stuff. And he coached the team. Again, we're going to see that they're going to have some help along that line. Well, the Conference Journal of the Northwest Texas Conference of Methodist Church in 1904 carried an advertisement saying that they had secured a building in Granbury, and that 2 of its graduates were attending Southwestern University in Georgetown. And that's a name that's going to come up again a little bit later. Well, J.R. Counts, who was pioneer rancher and banker here in Weatherford, started the Citizens National Bank that later became the Weatherford National Bank, and now is the first financial bank. He was a wealthy man, and he wanted to give money to Weatherford College. There are 2 or 3 different stories that you can follow through if you want to on the Counts claims, because his daughter was Mary Counts, who married Burt Burnett. And TCU named their library after her because of money that she gave. And all this financial money and all these family affairs make very interesting reading, but it's very long if you want to get involved in it. Well, Couch, when he died, he had Dr. I.W. Stevens, who was on the board earlier, and Counts Holland, who was the president of the bank. They were to be in charge of his estate. Well, Mary sued because her father, she said, had lost his marbles. First wife had died. They had quite a few children. They had a son who was had mental health problems, and Mary said that her father had lost his mind because he married the young daughter of one of the businessmen in town, Mayor Buster. And so they said, we're not going to have anything to do with him. When they read the will, it said he was giving money to the Weatherford College, to Counts Methodist Church, which was named for him because he paid for building the building there on Elm Street, and the grandchildren. The daughters and the son were left out. Well, Mary sued, and it's going to be a long, contentious trial that goes on. Finally, the courts will rule that Weatherford College can get the money. And this is going to be the thing that is going to be the really basis for Weatherford College continuing as it is this time. Well, in the late this period in 1950, Ms. J.D. Baker, whose husband was a prominent businessman in town, they're going to give the college $500 to purchase new curtains for the stage, opera chairs for the auditorium, and a piano. But the key thing that goes along with this is the main building is going to be wired for electricity and water lines installed along the sewage lines to the building. So you can see it's 1950. That's pretty good a long time after it started. Well, they're going to open the Weatherford College Training School in the fall of 1915 with 18 students compared to hundreds that they had had in the past. So you can see this is up and down as far as the enrollment's concerned. In 1915, the new formed Central Texas Annual Conference of the Methodist Church South reported that they were going to give $2,000 as a grant so that Weatherford College can continue to operate. So you can see they're beginning to get a little bit of help along the way. Well, 1917, we had another problem come up, World War I. A few students are going to be dropping out to go fight in it, but not a great number according to the enrollment records during that period of time. In 1921, the college is going to change the name again, and it's going to be called the Weatherford College Training School again. And the 1921 is a key year because the college had really ceased to operate for a couple of years during that time period. Dr. Herbert Gambrell of Southern Methodist University, was later head of the law journal that they published, came to Weatherford and taught history here for a little bit. Scott would appreciate having somebody like that on the staff. The college had ceased to operate and is holding classes, and one of the board members, W.W. McCrary, who was the son-in-law of Switzer, began to check, and in the will of Count, it said if the college was in operation 20 years after he died, that they would get this big chunk of money. And he realized that the time was running out and the college doors were actually closed. So his son happened to be going, Alvin McCrary, happened to be going to SMU, and so he's contacted him and he said, can you get me a president and a faculty so that we can get this money from the county? Well, he contacted Dr. Gambrell, and they got together, they got a faculty, they got a fellow who would come in as president, and they would take over and they would call it as Weatherford College. And from that point on, we're going to find that it's going to be a college, a junior college, that it is today. Well, the college was recognized officially as a junior college in 1921. So you can see that it's going to be very important. The estate liquidated by the Count's estate gave Weatherford College about $60,000. So $60,000 back in those days was a sizable amount of money. It ended the 20-year investment program that they had. Well, the Weatherford Chamber of Commerce decided we've got something that's going on down here on South Main Street. And so they began to talk with college officials and say, you need to have a gymnasium so that you can have an athletic program. And the city owned property just across from Old Main there. It's where the shopping center is today. And they said, we would like to have a building that we could use for Mayfest and sorts of things like that. We will pay so much money if the college will build a gymnasium there. And so that's when they built the gymnasium there on the property across the street. Weatherford College showed their appreciation by winning the state championship that year in basketball. So you can see that's the beginning of the Weatherford College athletic program that we know today. Enrollment for the fourth year of junior college operation was 294. So you can see they're beginning to move back up. When I graduated in 1955, we'll find that we were the first class to have over 100 in our graduating class. And I thought, well, this is great. And Brent comes along and tells me how many students you have today. And I said, we had that many at Northeast Campus, but we didn't have that at Weatherford College back then. Well, the 1927, they're going to begin the Weatherford College College, which is the newspaper that they're going to have. The athletic program is not going to be quite as stable as it is today, and they change coaches pretty regularly. W.B. McDaniel had been dean of the college, and they made him football coach during this 1929 period, and we're going to find that it's going to be very interesting. The football stadium was where the ninth grade center is today. I can remember it because it had high board fences around it, big wide boards, I guess 6 feet high. and it ran north and south. Because of the situation being what it was, Weatherford College played their football games on Thursday afternoon. Weatherford High School played their games on Friday afternoon. No lights. Well, Miss McDaniel, who was teaching here at the college, and her husband became president, she said it's a crying shame that we can't play at night and when we can play something besides an afternoon game. And she got a group together and gathered enough money to buy lights for the school. So that's how they got their program. Another prominent investor that we had in the community was a fellow by the name of E.D. Farmer. E.D. Farmer was a rancher in this area, and E.D. Farmer is going to give money to every church and every school in Parker County at one time or another. The estate is operated by the Beggs family, George Beggs. Some of you may be familiar with it. It's on the road just north of where Interstate 30 crosses, well, is that 30? Yeah, 20 crosses the Farmer Road or Farmer Road 5. And Beggs gave $5,000 to Weatherford College at that time to help it. Well, Boger, R.G. Boger is going to come in as the president in 1936, and this is the beginning of the real interest in football. Football will continue at Weatherford College until World War II comes along, and they're going to drop the program. When the war comes to an end, they will bring the kids back. Hill County College says, we're not going to have football. And so the kids who were playing in Hill County came to Weatherford College and played the last year that we had a football team here. Weatherford College at this time was a part of Southwestern University in Georgetown, which was a Methodist school. And so you can see the Methodist connection still involved in there until the 1940s when Weatherford College became a junior college district. But they fill in a little bit on the college football program. I was growing up getting interested in college sports at that time, and I always laughed because Southwestern University had black and gold for their colors. Weatherford College is black and gold. So Southwestern University get new helmets, they get new uniforms and so forth. They'd send their old stuff back up here. Sadly to say, they also did that with some of the faculty members. I had one particular faculty member, very fine fellow, I really liked him, but the library building that they built next to the gymnasium there had science labs and science classes upstairs. The library was downstairs. They seated us alphabetically, which meant that I sat on the back row. And in the spring and summer, it got hot. The windows had to be left open because there's no air conditioning. Traffic on South Main Street was beginning to get pretty heavy at that time. And I can remember on several occasions, I would hold up my hand and I'd say, "Could you please explain that?" Teacher looked at me and he'd say, "Would you rephrase that, please?" So I'd rephrase it, and he would look at me and he'd say, "Well, we'll cover that a little bit later. Bring it up again." Get that point. He never heard what I said. So we had a little difficult time. Well, time is beginning to run out, so I'll wind up with saying that the college in 1949, Southwestern University decided that they were not going to have anything to do with Weatherford College, and they're going to turn it over to the people in Parker County. You would not believe the support that the people in the county gave when they decided to have an election for the district. They went to every community, I guess they went to every house. And they voted overwhelmingly to create Parker County Junior College District. You can see the results of that today. We had not had a strong college program up until that point. They came in and created the junior college district, and almost immediately, Mr. Parrott, who had come from Uvalde College as president, Mr. Parrott came in and he restored what I call the real feeling of Weatherford College. When we would have activities at the college, we'd have Sadie Hawkins program, or we'd have a Halloween masquerade party and stuff in the gym. Mr. Parrott and his wife Polly were always there. And they knew every student by name. He went to every school in this area and contacted each senior personally so that they would be able to get started. And you can see that under his leadership, it's going to grow very rapidly. And the people are going to realize, hey, we don't have any parking space. There is no room for us to expand the campus, so therefore we're going to have to move. And you students today are benefiting from that move. Up here on this old rocky hill, when they bought it and started building up here, I thought, can anything good come out of that? Yes, it can, and it really has. And if you have any questions or comments you'd like to make. I know I've kind of rushed through this, but it has a great history. College has great history. And you'll find it, faculty members like we have here that have a great deal to do with it. Doug over here's an old friend of mine. He knows, I guess, every student by name, don't you? And it's people like that that have made this college available for the students. And I'm glad that you're taking advantage of it today. Thank you.